Welcome to the Hermiston City Council. I'm going to open the council meeting for October 24th, 2024 with a declaration of quorum. We're going to excuse Councilor Barone and Councilor Maria Duran this evening because it coincides with school counseling conferences. Yes, conferences this evening. Please join me in the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So welcome to all of you that are joining us for the first time in our new City Council chambers. It feels so professional and stuff in here. Feels nice. I'm going to start out by reading a proclamation. We have a proclamation in front of us this evening honoring our Vietnam veterans across America. Are there any Vietnam veterans here this evening? How many of you?
You can't count that.
Can't count that. Well, thank you for coming this evening. So I'm going to read this proclamation and then I'm going to sign it into the official record this evening. Proclamation honoring our Vietnam veterans across America. Whereas the Vietnam War spanned nearly 15 years, involving North Vietnam and the Viet Cong in conflict with South Vietnam and the United States, along with our allies ending nearly 47 years ago in 1975. And whereas more than 9 million Americans, including many from Hermiston, courageously answered their call to service during the Vietnam War, being deployed to unknown lands far from their homes and loved ones, enduring the horrors of war while fighting to preserve our freedoms and way of life. And whereas more than 58,000 American service members never returned home, making the ultimate sacrifice in service to our nation, their names now etched in black granite on the wall at the Vietnam Veteran Memorial in Washington, D.C., and more than 1,500 service members remain missing in action. And whereas many of those who did return home did not receive the hero's welcome that they deserved, and instead were too often subjugated to abuse and threatened shamefully by an American government and public that were deeply divided over the unpopular war, causing pain, trauma, and other consequences that have been long-term and intergenerational. And whereas the 11th of November is commemorated as Veterans Day in the United States to recognize all service members of the U.S. Armed Forces who have served in times of foreign conflict and in times of peace. Now therefore, I, Dr. Dave Drossman, Mayor of Hermiston, Oregon, do hereby proclaim, acknowledge, and express our tremendous and undying gratitude for dedicated service and sacrifices of the American military service members deployed during the Vietnam War, and to the many servicemen and women who supported them in their mission, as well as their family members and loved ones. Furthermore, I express our deep regrets for the Vietnam veterans and their families whose loyal service to our nation was not recognized as it should have been, when it should have been, and for all the unnecessary pain and trauma this may have caused. Signed this date, 24th of October, 2022. Thank you for your service. So I understand you guys are going to also have events coming up. Is that Friday?
Friday, yes, sir. There's a Remembering American Heroes with Ken Buckles will be driving a very well decorated Humvee into Hermiston Friday evening. It'll meet at we're first stop on his trip to go across the United States through the South and return home. His ultimate plan is to end up at the wall in Washington, D.C., where he will present a petition of remembering America's heroes concerning the Vietnam veterans, and it's called the Vietnam Apology Tour. And he'll be here. We're having a potato bar and dessert bar that evening, and he will be speaking. As some of you may know, he spoke at our high school on Memorial Day weekend, and he had several of our veterans from different wars that spoke to 1,700 high school students. And it was an amazing event, and we had as you may remember, we had the Wall of Honor at the Hermiston Community Center, which was well received, and I thank the city for allowing us to use that facility for such an event.
So where's your celebration?
It's Friday evening.
Where?
At the First Christian Church on Highland. And then hopefully there will be enough motorcyclists and other people to escort the vehicle into Hermiston. Then Saturday morning we'll escort them out of town. And our chief of police doesn't really have to do much on this one. By the way, I appreciate what he's done for us in the past. We've had some memorable talks, and I appreciate what he's done for us.
Well, that's the least we can do for the service that you provide to our nation. So thank you for your service and commitment to our nation and the sacrifices that you've given us.
Usually when somebody says thank you for your service, I always reply, we did it for all the hot chicks.
Good for you. All right, we're at the first opportunity to have citizen input. This is items that are not on the current agenda. So if there is someone in the audience that would like to speak to the council, please come up to the podium up front, introduce yourself by name and address, direct your comments to me, and trying to limit them to 5 minutes. All of you in the audience tonight, nobody wants to speak? All right. So we're going to move on to the consent agenda items. Consent agenda items A through E. Do we need to pull any of those?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to have item A pulled from the agenda.
Okay. Any others? Okay. So are there any public comments on consent agenda items B, C, D, or E? Okay. Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve consent agenda items all but A?
So moved. Second.
All right. Been moved by Councilor Davis, second by Councilor Primer, that we approve the consent agenda items as presented, B, C, D, and E. Roll call.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Item A, Councilor Spicer-Coon.
Yeah, I'd like to excuse myself. I have a conflict of interest.
Okay. So proper protocol now here is he has to stand outside of the council chambers.
Yeah.
Okay, just make sure that you can get back in. That door locks, right? Okay. All right, so consent agenda item A was a liquor license application for the Hermiston Tavern. Any further council discussion on that? Any public comment? Can I get a motion to approve consent agenda item A?
So moved.
Second.
And moved by Councilor Turner, seconded by Councilor Harding, that we approve the consent agenda item A as presented. Roll call.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, 5-0, with one excused for conflict. All right, moving on to public hearings. We have an annexation for Nobles 4 and 28004D tax lots 1100, 1101, 1102, 1103 Northwest Sojourn Lane, ordinance number 2342. Are there any conflicts of interest?
I have one.
Yes.
Okay, so that limits us to 4 councilors and the mayor. How do we proceed? Mr. Toby?
Always have a hard time seeing that red. So we're in an interesting situation tonight where we're missing a couple of our council members, which then does limit us to 4 members plus the mayor, which under the charter, the 5 of you do constitute a quorum. However, that doesn't change the fact that the mayor only gets to vote in the case of a tie. And with situations where there's an ordinance that needs to be passed, that has to be passed at least with the vote of 5 council members.
Majority of the full council. So you'd have to have at least 5 voting members to pass it. So even if everybody voted 4-0, doesn't have enough majority.
Correct.
Okay.
So I
So-
believe we're in a situation where that item of business may need to be
Okay.
sent over.
So I would take a recommendation from the council to table this annexation until we have one.
I'm so moved that.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Primer and seconded by Councilor Davis that we table the annexation of Nobles 4N 284D until such time we have a quorum present for discussion. Can they still vote on the motion?
I would say it's probably safer that if they have a conflict with this item of business that,
They don't vote it up?
yeah. they-
Okay. Roll call for those that can vote.
Yes.
Hold on before we vote. Can we vote without a quorum?
Well, you technically have a quorum, you have 5.
But we're not passing an annexation.
And we're not passing an ordinance, so you don't need 5 votes.
We just need a majority of that quorum.
General.
Okay.
To-
All right.
to so we're voting to table the
Yes.
discussion.
Correct.
Okay, so, yes, I vote to table.
Yes.
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 Okay. Annexation Nobles 4N 28004D is tabled till time we can have a quorum present. Moving on to ordinance number 2341, implement Southwest Hermiston Urban Renewal Area second. Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I'll ask Mr. Morgan to handle this.
Morgan?
So we held a public hearing for this ordinance at your last council meeting where we went through the staff report. There was no public comments received at that public hearing, no comments from the council at that time. So we're just simply having a second reading of this ordinance to adopt it.
Okay, so second reading of ordinance 2341. Is there any public comment on that? Okay. Seeing none, the first reading of this ordinance was presented and read on October 10th meeting, and the second reading was set to take place at this meeting. Mayor requests that the ordinance be put on for final adoption at this meeting, that the second reading be by title only, and calls for a roll call.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Mr. Tubby?
Second reading by title only, ordinance number 2341, an ordinance making certain determinations and findings relating to and approving the Southwest Hermiston Urban Renewal Plan and directing that notice of approval be published.
Thank you. Motion that ordinance number 2341 be adopted and become effective 90 days after adoption by the City Council.
So moved. Second.
Then moved by Councilor Spicer Coon, second by Councilor Trimmer. The motion that this ordinance be adopted and become effective 90 days after adoption from the City Council. Roll call.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We're done with that one. Is that right? Normally, we kind of do a longer version of that. There's multiple readings, but this one, because we did it at the last meeting, this was our second reading. Got it. Okay, we're going to move on to ordinance 2342, which we've tabled. So do we need a motion to table this as well?
And I think there are some members in the audience who are here specifically for that. So when this does come up, they should be at least given notice and let know what meeting we're going to be discussing this at.
I think if those members are here and they would like to speak to it, just let Lily know and we'll provide notice. I'm guessing it's coming up at the next City Council meeting.
Yeah, and that would be our plan unless we have a rash of people who can't make that
That's
meeting.
it, yeah. So, okay, so those that are here would like to speak, plan on coming back. We'd like to hear your comments at the next City Council meeting. Can I get a motion to table this?
So moved. Second.
Then moved by Councilor Davis, second by Councilor Primer, that we table ordinance number 2342. Roll call.
Okay. Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously with 4 people that can vote, with 2 declarations of conflict.
And Mr. Mayor, that the plan would be then, it would be November 14th is the next council meeting.
Perfect. So those that are here that want to speak, please come back on November 14th. If they can't come back on that date, they can also substitute, or they can also submit written testimony.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Peterson.
I would just like to say, for those of you that did come out with this in mind, thank you for doing so. We appreciate you being part of the process. And then, please be aware that we do see you and that we are, when we're up here and we just, table things, we do so because we want to make sure that the right number of people are up here and can make decisions without conflicts of interest. So that's the reason why it just seems like we've kind of like put it back in the deck and aren't paying attention. We actually are paying attention, and we want to make sure that, you know, the right voices are being heard by the right people. So, you know, that's the reason for all of this. So we're glad you came out. We look forward to seeing you again.
All right, we're going to move on to Resolution 2241, approval of the IGA related to practical assistance through transitional housing project. Mr. Smith?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we've been working probably basically over this past year with the cities of Umatilla, Stanfield, Echo, as well as Umatilla County on a collaborative approach to providing transitional housing and other services to those who are experiencing homelessness. And part of this collaboration has led to a grant from the state of Oregon, $1 million, and we have given an acronym PATH, which is Practical Assistance Through Transitional Housing, for the project. In May, the council held a joint meeting with the city of Umatilla and Umatilla County to discuss this approach, and this proposed IGA before you is kind of the results of all of those discussions. It establishes an advisory board to participate and advise the city of Umatilla, which will be the actual holder of the contract with a provider for those services. And that process has led to an agreement that is in process. I don't know that it's been finally approved yet with the nonprofit Stepping Stones. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I just hate to bring it up again. I am on the Stepping Stones Board of Directors. I don't know if this directly poses a conflict of interest, but part of this contract does cover the contract with Stepping Stones that Umatilla has.
Are you more on the board than our representative
Yes.
to the meetings?
Yes.
Okay. I'll leave that determined. I'll let the city attorney opine.
Mr. Tubby, do you have an opinion?
I don't know if I should necessarily be a conflict for Councilmember Spicer-Kuhn, but that the Stepping Stones is receiving a benefit because of this agreement, and that's a board that you sit on. I guess I should almost throw it back into the council member as far as do you feel like you're under a conflict?
I don't know that any of this really covers the direct contract that Stepping Stones has. I just wanted to make sure that I'm covering it with you and announcing that I have recently been, well, I was asked to serve on the board and approved. It hasn't been very long I've been there, but
If anything, it might be as a potential conflict, but I think with what you're saying, the actual contract is with the city of Umatilla and Stepping Stones, so.
The IGA is not with Stepping Stones, so I would say.
So, Councilor Spicer-Kuhn has declared a potential conflict of interest. All right. Any other questions from the council? So this is an intergovernment agreement between us and the other 3 municipalities that partner, 4 municipalities that partner to include Umatilla County?
Correct.
Okay. And since we're a receiving partner in the transfer of $1 million, this is to just commit our share to Umatilla to serve as the functioning arm of this.
That and this would indicate that we are putting forward this solution as our solution to help address homelessness as it might occur within Hermiston. So if we want to go down the road of, Ninth Circuit opinions that are binding on us, if someone were camping in a public place that we didn't feel like was appropriate, having this agreement would allow us to, you know, transfer them or allow them to move up there and be our solution for that, and so that we wouldn't be in violation of that law.
Very good. And there's an advisory board, not what Mr. Spicer-Coon was speaking about, but independent, that oversees this association or agreement between the 4 cities and the county to operate a homeless shelter facility. And the advisory board consists of a member from each of those communities, is that right?
That's
And are those
correct.
members already appointed?
Well, I mean, we've been kind of functioning as an informal as the city managers, but we would eventually be coming to the council to look for a direct appointment of someone.
This also commits us not only to this initial $1 million grant, but also ongoing operations. Is that correct as well?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
So I think the council needs to also understand that there's a long-term commitment to this, in which we're trying to find resources in partnering with an association like Stepping Stones that would look to fund that facility long-term, because we all know that this is a 2-year commitment, although the situation and the challenge that we have facing us in the community and the region with homelessness is not a 2-year commitment. And so we're looking for a long-term solution or a long-term commitment. And so this is committing the city of Hermiston to work with those partners on providing the solution. Other questions, comments? Okay. Any public comment on resolution number 2241? Nothing? Sir, I have this evening. This is a long process. This has been something we've been working on for several years, trying to find a humane solution that helps the city work with our homeless population and those people that are transitional from homeless to hopefully transition them into more long-term housing solutions. And so I'm proud of the agreement that we've reached. I'm proud that we're working together as a region. I especially appreciate our other cities that are on the west end of Umatilla County, Echo, Stanfield, Umatilla, as well as our county partner, in trying to, address the need within our community. I think this has been recognized across the state as, one of our #1 priorities that we need to address as not only as a city, but as a state. And so trying to find humane solutions to house people or provide temporary assistance. I'm proud of the agreement that we've worked on and the association that we're working with. I think it's a humane solution that we've found. And so I'm looking forward to the outcome. It's not done, obviously, but at least we have a path forward as we can look forward to some more transitional housing and hopefully some wraparound services that can help people that are struggling with whatever their needs are, and help them to get their feet back under them and transition into more permanent housing and hopefully back into the workforce and contributing members of society. So there is a resolution in front of you, and I would take a motion to adopt resolution 2241 and lay it upon the record.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Davis, seconded by Councilor Primer, that we adopt resolution number 2241. Roll call.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll abstain.
Abstain. Okay. Yes.
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 Motion passes 5-1 with 1 abstention, Mr. Spicer-Coon. So congratulations. What's the next steps on this, Mr. Smith?
So there, I believe, Commissioner, there's been some dirt work done, or it's almost there. The city of Umatilla is going to be doing some dirt work on the property to start getting it prepared for installation of a septic system and then installation of some manufactured buildings. The group has also started building what they're calling the Conestoga huts, which are an individual kind of housing unit that are going to be used at the project. So things are moving forward. Unfortunately, we weren't able to meet the projected goal of trying to be open in kind of November when the weather really turns cold. And so Stepping Stones has found another solution for this winter for a kind of a warming station, which will be up at the former Sears building on North 395. And then right now, the last dates that I got from the city of Umatilla, they're looking at February to try to be operational at the other site. So.
And as far as next steps, as far as the process with this agreement, all
with
the cities have to agree.
Yeah, and I believe the county has adopted. Umatilla was going to have it on their agenda this month. I don't know the details on Stanfield and Echo, but I know that everybody is putting it forward to get the approval so we can continue forward. The grant agreement with the state requires us to be making some of these steps, and we're just a tad behind, but we're still on track with them. So.
And I don't know if maybe I missed it, but was there some sort of groundbreaking celebration or anything?
No.
That would be good. I think this is monumental, and so I would love if we could.
Okay, I'll reach out to the city
organize
of Umatilla and see
something
if we
like
can get
that.
something organized.
Yeah, that would be good. Great. I'm excited. Thank you for all of our partners in that. Approval of lease to Made to Thrive for the construction of sports fields on the front 20 acres of the Geotech property. Mr. Smith.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we had a discussion about this last meeting, and some concerns were brought up. We went back working with Made to Thrive, and we're able to add some language in there protecting that area for parking, particularly for the fair, but any other large event, making sure that it would be available. And that was really the major change from the lease the last time you saw it. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
I remember there was also some questions about responsibility as far as damage. So who's responsible for repairs and that sort of stuff?
Well, both there's insurance required on both parties to be held. I think from an operational standpoint, the city, will be taking most of the responsibility because of just wanting to make sure we're comfortable with the equipment and doing all of that. So.
Okay. Has the council had a chance to read the lease and happy with the added language? Are there any other questions from the council about the lease? I see Mr. Burns from the Village Project out there. He can answer questions if he has some. Okay, is there any public comment on the lease? Okay, I would take a motion to authorize the city manager to sign the lease as proposed.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Primer, seconded by Councilor Harden. That we approve the lease to Made to Thrive construction of sports fields on the front 20 acres of the Geotech property. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Thank you to City Manager Smith and Councilor Mr. Tubby and Heroes Patience for an extra couple weeks. I'm trying to get the language correct so that everybody was comfortable. So, all right, Mr. K, September 2022 financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I tried to learn from the investment report at our last council meeting. I'm trying to make numbers readable. When you talk about numbers, people tend to get a bovine stare anyway, but when you can't really see them, it adds to the dilemma. So hopefully tonight you'll be able to see the points that I care to highlight. Turn on. This is the Urban Renewal Agency. I can't believe that we have $1,777 in actual tax revenue through the end of September. I don't know who wants to pay their property taxes that early, but we have revenue that we did not forecast. That's just a positive. Nothing major there. We will see more as we get into the latter part of this month in October, certainly in November. By the end of the calendar year, we will probably see in excess of what we're projecting for the revenue for the agency. Projected revenues in the general fund were $342,000. We actually have $445,000, positive variance of $103, due mostly to transfers from our transient room tax that are quarterly, as well as we have higher permitting fees and plan review, construction permits, and plumbing permits as far as versus what was done last year. So that's a sign to me of economic activity that's a positive for the community. When I look at expenditures, they were virtually on target for the month with only a variance of $38,000 below projected. For all intents and purposes, to be off only $38,000 for a $1.5 million projected expenditures is pretty good. I'd like to say that's due to a lot of foresight and wisdom and expertise, but it's only based on a 3-year historical average, so I can't say that. Trying to summarize the detail in the general fund expenditures, I took our classifications for administrative, public service, and public safety, and non-departmental to show you that we have a little extra money being spent in public service, basically because of operations in airport operations, parks, and recreation. They were having a lot of programs through the month of September, ending up the summer, if you will. I'm not sure what October portends going forward, but right now we are within 1% of expenditure levels for the general fund through the first quarter. I think that's a very good accomplishment for the city. As we look at the general fund balance, it is just a tad over $4 million at quarter end, which is $1.7 million more than the minimum reserve of $2.265, or 1.77 times the minimum reserve. I think we will be in good shape as we head into November as far as well exceeding our minimum reserve requirement. Utility street funds and utility and street funds and HES, they're all in good shape from a revenue perspective. The street fund got more money last month than they planned on, so they're a little short this month. Everyone else is sitting very well with revenue as well as under on expenditures. Regional water will continue to have the issue on revenue through the year. And then here, when you have in your financial report a summary of all of the capital projects, I've decided to have it be readable for the public that's here as well as possibly the councils to emphasize those projects that had significant activity during the month. And I've asked Assistant City Manager Morgan if he'd care to talk about the projects one by one, because there were 4 that had significant activity through the month.
Yes, so everyone is aware of our large project that's on the way on North First Place. We're set to get that out to bid the first week of November, looking for awarding that contract at your first meeting in December. Begin work early on in calendar year 2023. The Gladys Main water line replacement, I mentioned this during our previous Public Infrastructure Committee meeting, but because of significantly large projects associated with the regional water system, as a result of bringing water to the Amazon campuses down on Feetville, it was just felt that for staff capacity and oversight of large water projects, it made sense to simply push the beginning of design on that Gladys Main water line back about 6 months, so that they're not having to juggle and manage contractors on 3 really large water projects all at the same time. So that one's just, the update is just that we're pushing that one back about 6 months. The McDonald's and 395 sewer main replacement, we continue to be at an impasse with the property owners that we're going to have to get the easement for to bring that new sewer main over to, I believe it's Cornell, I think is the entrance road there into Walmart. In working with the property owners, it's really just a function of how their ownership group is structured. There's not a challenge to any one of the individual owners. They just can't decide how to divide up the revenue when we pay them for this easement. And so on the advice of external counsel, we're looking at going through it. It's a similar process to what we did when we acquired, some of you may remember, we acquired the 20-acre parcel that the Heroes project is located on. We technically went through the same process at that time where we petition the court, we deposit the amount of the value of in that case, the property, in this case, the easement, and then from there, the individual members of that operating group can figure out how to divide up the revenues. So we'll be looking to bring that action to you potentially here at that first council meeting in November. And then on sewer lift station number 3, I'm happy to report that our casing is through and it's underneath the railroad tracks. So it took a lot of pushing and shoving, but we got it through. So, one thing that all of the lengthy delays and everything dealing with the railroad and everything is what they're going to do is they have the casing underneath the railroad. They're going to get the pipe in there and then button it up for winter because the major component of that project will be decommissioning of the actual lift station number 3, which is physically located in 395 and is part of the reason why we're decommissioning this, but we don't want to have a cold patch of asphalt on there all through the winter. So we're decommissioning that aspect and we'll begin that again in the spring so we can actually pave that as quickly as possible once we decommission that lift station. So that's where we're at.
Questions, council, on any of those updates?
And I just one, because it's our showpiece, I believe, here in the city, the new city hall, I would defer to City Manager Smith if he'd care to add anything to where we stand, because it's substantially complete.
We have a long punch list that still needs to be done, but we are seeing a little bit of progress here and there. The furniture contractor was in the end of last week and installed a few more pieces, and so we're getting closer. There's a few more things that have been delayed, but we're seeing a little bit of progress on the punch list, so good to see that.
107%?
Yeah, 107%.
Yeah, we
Achieved some things that weren't originally on the list. Huh?
well, we had a little bit of COVID influence on the steel prices up front as we were putting in the floors, and then we had a few other items just kind of nicked us little bits at a time, and I'll be coming back. Once we get through all the punch list items, make sure we don't have any other surprises, I'll come back with a full report on the costs and everything, so.
We held on to some payments.
Yes, we still have the retainage,
Okay.
which is about $500,000.
Yeah. If you wanna-
Paid for the heating, there isn't any.
Are
It's
you
better
kidding?
this time.
I think it's hot.
It's better than it was. I was thinking we could like hang something from that little thing in the back, like when the holidays come, you know? Jingle bells or something on the door.
Yeah.
Cool. Make it work.
All right, any other questions on the financial report? No. Any public comment on the September 2022 financial report? Okay, can I get a motion to accept the September 2022 financial report as presented?
So moved. Second.
Been moved by Councilor Davis, seconded by Councilor Harden, that we approve the September 2022 financial report. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Mr. Smith, goal setting update.
Yes, so I'm going to go through. This was not inserted if you looked immediately at your agenda, but if you're looking at the fresh link tonight, this report is there. Just going to hit on some of the items that have been actively worked on in the last quarter. First, workforce development. PacWest has been helping us build some relationship with groups that are looking to try to build a training center, particularly for some of the trades. And I'm going to actually make a trip this week to go down and see one they have functioning in Canby. And so I'll hopefully have a little bit more information then. But it's being led by the operating engineers at this point, and so I think there will be some good things that can come of that.
When you say trades, you're talking...
Well, this is heavy equipment operating to start with, but they hope to partner with some of the others as well to try to bring some more training to the center.
Great.
But there's a little bit of clashing among the trades right now, so. Housing, we've been, again, working with various developers, but this last week had a meeting with a new potential market rental housing developer looking at, potentially coming here. Had a discussion with them about the green property because they also have some expertise in senior housing development. So we'll see where that conversation goes, but continuing to try to impact the housing market in any of the price ranges and any of the types that we can, so that we can try to improve that.
We had a presentation from it's not low income, but the property off of 11th, that developer, they run an enterprise. They spoke to us about that property. Are they still talking about development?
Have they expressed any more interest? I wasn't aware.
We've had interest from various developers, including Hermiston Development, but a lot of it's just a function of having the time to go through the process of actually advertising it, because there had been some interest from the development community when, if we were to pull off the more restrictive requirement that it be, more for direct provision of senior housing, a lot more people were interested in, if it didn't come with that. Because there was such strong interest, I wanted to make sure that we actually do a full RFP and give all of the development community the opportunity to pitch something on it. So, very good.
So then, wellness, under this item, we're continuing to have some conversations with potential partners on a health and wellness facility. Homelessness, we had a great discussion about the PATH project, and thank you for approving that IGA. We've also been, I know a number of the counselors at the LOC went to sessions or tours related to homelessness, and there were some good ideas, and so we're reaching out to some of those contacts to see if there's ways that we can bring some of those projects to Hermiston, or those types of projects. City Hall, or city facilities, City Hall's occupied, excited for that. We've also, again, finalized the lease for the grass fields. We've also been working with the county on stakeholders to do some construction on the barns with some grant funds. And then we're also in the midst of kind of finalizing that transition from venue works to city management of EOTech, so all of those things have been going on. We just, at the Port's last commission meeting, we finalized the purchase of some additional groundwater rights from the Port of Umatilla. It's on property where we constructed the South Hermiston Industrial Park, basically, and they had a little bit of additional water rights that they weren't going to use, so we were able to purchase them, and that we can relocate the point of diversion where we would be taking the water, so it just gives us some extra resources in the long term. We're also working with the Port of Umatilla as far as the regional water system and how we can continue to use that as an asset as we look into the future, and additional users continue to look for water sources for various parts of a industrial process. So continue to have those discussions. I don't have anything solid to report at this point. Digital infrastructure, we completed the broadband surveys. Mr. Rivera made a report a couple months ago to the council. We're continuing to have discussions with some of the providers in the area, but also starting to look closely at the funding opportunities, particularly through the state broadband office. They're just released some draft rules that we reviewed this week, and working with LLC's telecom policy committee on comments back for those things. So all of that is continuing to move forward. In arts and culture, we have a liaison to a community group from city staff that's working on the idea of a Hermiston museum. Don't have anything real solid to bring forward at this point, but it's good to see a group that's kind of interested in trying to do that. We've also been working with Umatilla County on a resource center for particularly our Spanish-speaking population, but in general, just as a place for those to come and make sure they know where resources are, how to access them, and find ways to kind of make that work better. So I'm hoping my plan is to have a more final plan of that coming forward to you in the month of November. So continuing to work on that. And then finally, advocacy, we're continuing to work with regional, state, and national partners on project funding. Actually, we'll have the firm we've been using out of Washington, D.C. will be in this week to talk with us just to get a better picture of the projects that we're interested in, to help them as they work with staff and members of the different agencies back in Washington, D.C. So all those things are moving forward, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Mr. Smith, as far as facilities, what about library? Where's the status of that, and what's that look like as far as how we transition that back to the library services?
Yeah, so that's actually part of that resource center discussion with Umatilla County, is discussions about them helping us fund the second phase of the renovation of the library that would also then begin to function as this resource center. So that's what I hope to bring back.
So currently, we've exited the property.
Currently,
nothing else has been done with it.
The library has shifted staffing a little bit. We had kind of forced their staff into a different configuration. They moved back into some of the space that we had occupied, and that's really the only change at this point. They did have a book sale. The Friends of the Library had a book sale down in the basement this last weekend, I think, and so they're looking at ways that they can potentially make the most of that program space that really got improved when we made the first phase of renovation.
So the one side stayed the same, where the conference kind of meeting room area was, and then the space where City Hall was. It's going to stay the way it is currently until we figure out.
Right.
Other questions from Mr. Smith on the goal setting update?
I just want to go back a little bit onto the deal with the library. Wasn't the funding for the returning the library to its its original configuration, or some semblance of that? Wasn't that included as part of was not what you told us was part of the?
No, it was always the first phase to make the configuration as it sits right now, which sets up the library for future improvements. But we never planned with the initial bond issue to do the second phase of the library.
Why wouldn't we?
Because that would have been another $2 million in the bond issue that we didn't have money to pay back at that point. But we are looking at, we have lines on some funding that we think we'll be able to move fairly quickly. It won't be immediate, but within the next 6 months, if everything works out well with Umatilla County.
Okay. Any other questions from the council on the goal setting? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
All right, so we're moving on to city committee and liaison reports. Anyone?
We had a Parks and Rec meeting on October 13th, and the best news was that we have a notice to proceed for the Teen Adventure Park. So, right at this moment, planning and design are happening, and ground will be broken in the spring. And Brandon gave several updates on all the events in the city and all the updates to the parks and all the things happening. And also he mentioned that there's new signage on the Harkin Rider Senior Activity Center. There's big letters on the facing 395 if anybody's noticed them. It looks pretty nice. It's a good meeting.
And we also had a presentation.
Okay, it's from Heroes.
Yes, from Heroes.
And Brandon's getting ready for EOTech takeover, is that right? Is that coming under Parks and Rec?
No, not full operation. They will be assisting with the grounds
Right.
parts of that.
I've seen guys out cleaning up the city too, especially 5, a lot of maintenance and
Yeah, we're trying to do some cleanup before winter gets here.
good.
How about Riverside?
Yeah, the riverfront park thing?
On the playground, is that going to get finished up here soon?
Unfortunately, we have a delay. We're missing 2 poles that are pretty crucial. They're 19-foot poles, so staff is out doing as much as they can, but mid-November is when they should be here. Once we get those up, then it'll go quickly.
Right, that no ground is frozen by then?
Hopefully not.
Yeah, but anticipating the getting the riverfront playground for a while, so it'd be nice to have that completed. Other committee reports, yes?
So we had our public safety committee meetings this evening. Chief Hermiston gave us a brief update, as did I can't remember names. What's that?
Jillian?
Yes, Jillian from the boards. I am so sorry, ma'am. I am horrible with names anymore. Anyway, we received updates from both of them. The basic is that for the police department, 3 out of 4 violent person crimes are down from last year. Unfortunately, aggravated assaults are up, burglaries are down, larceny is up, theft is up. Total crime is up 29%, and violent crime is down 45%. They've had a rise in calls for service, while officer-initiated activity dropped. That's kind of a give and take type of thing. And then the courts basically are telling us that they're moving around, pieces are moving. They're having they changed operations dates or court dates and times, which has been allowing for a greater receiving of funding or of fines and costs. So it was brief, but it was very informative.
So we get an update on when this will be used as a courtroom?
That was not brought up.
So that, we're looking at mid-November. Actually, according to the contractor, the glass that we're waiting on is supposed to be delivered on the 26th, and giving them time, a little bit of time to schedule the work and so forth. We're looking at mid-November to be in here and begin operating court.
Okay, so are there offices here currently, or they're still over there?
They're still over there so that they can be there, but I know Ms. Viles has been here almost daily, kind of just checking in and making sure.
Great. Just for the public's information, this facility was designed as also a courtroom, so it'll operate during the day as a courtroom and twice a month as a city council chamber. So the opulence wasn't designed for the mayor. It was designed for a functioning courtroom that the judge will sit behind. We will have a new judge starting January 1.
Starting January 1, correct.
Any other committee reports? We did have an EOTech meeting. Got got an update Mr. Smith already spoke about, barn extensions. The fair is going to try and build out the swine and beef barn with the funds that they have allocated to their original design. It was value engineered in the first project because we didn't have the funds to build it out fully. And so they're going to try and build those out fully. Currently, if you believe this or not, they're running out of space up there already. So they have to put some partial tents up and stuff to make it function. So they're going to build out the beef and swine barn to their original design. Hopefully they have that done by fair. We also had a brief update from the Heroes Project, and they were a little bit behind on schedule, but they're hoping to have things up and ready for a spring kickoff. I guess kickoff isn't the right word.
Was it a toss-up? Is it that cross?
Face-off.
Face-off.
There we go.
Spring face-off.
We'll kick off. We got soccer or
Soccer. Yeah.
7-on-7 football.
Yeah, there you go.
You're in the ballpark.
Nice.
Enough sporting references in there to throw stick
Swimmingly too.
The
didn't
parks.
Any other committee reports? All right, moving on to the mayor's report. A couple questions, Mr. Smith, the wayfinding signs. I've noticed a few of those around town. Are you going to talk about that tonight? Or can you give us an update? What's the status on those? And I've seen two.
Right. So what we did is kind of our first phase, which is identifying parking in the downtown areas. And so those are installed. There's one we need to make a modification to. And anything else you want to add, Mr. Spencer?
So what did we budget? How much signage?
We had about 70,000 in the budget, and that wound up not being expended last year, so we're going to have to supplement and bring that back again, roll it over into this year.
Okay. So this year we should see more of those?
No, that's all we're planning on doing. What we're doing with the parking is the extent of the urban renewal portion. From this point on, it'll have to be general fund expenditures.
Oh, okay. So as far as wayfinding, 2 signs is all we planned?
There's more than that. We have the 5 posts and 6 signs that are up now, and then there's about 35 more signs that will be going up on light poles. There's been some issues with the tooling required to get 2 signs to go like that 40 feet up in the air, so we've been kind of having to order the special tools for that with our contractor.
Gotcha. So we'll see more of those?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Did y'all want with 5 poles and 6 signs?
One pole, the one over by the food pot, because of how it's located, it's a 2-way sign.
I don't know if you guys have seen the Oregon Mayor Association's recommendation on homelessness. And so they came out with it last week. Have we shared that with the council? Can we share that with the council? So please send that around. It's public information. It was sent to all the gubernatorial candidates as well as the legislators. The OMA put together a task force last spring here in Hermiston for homelessness, conversation around homelessness statewide. So it was 25 mayors came together over the last 6 months to try and create some sort of recommendation to the legislators and the gubernatorial candidates about the homelessness that we were facing as a state in our individual communities. And so the communities that were represented were Portland down to Fossil. And so your largest, some of your smallest cities. It was the coast, it was the east, it was the north, it was the south. And so to bridge the urban-rural divide, it was urban and, or it was the east and west, it was north and south, so there was a lot of commitment from the entire state. And they came up with a unanimous decision on a recommendation to the legislators and the governor asking for support in helping us manage the homelessness crisis. And so it's we're asking for a financial commitment from the state. So in that commitment, what we asked for was a $40 per capita per population based on Portland State, direct allocation to the cities for operations. And then we also are asking for the commitment of capital expenditures to help communities build out their facilities. So those communities that have structures that are in the works, like ours, for instance, that are piloted to be designed. Ours already has resources allocated, but other resources or other facility commitments within communities to try and get them resources so that they can build out their projects. And then we've also asked for flexibility in that funding. So we identified that not all cities have as big of a concern or issue as, say, Portland or Eugene or Hermiston. You know, they may not have as much noticeable challenges with homelessness. So we've asked for flexibility in that spending so that we could partner together with local entities. So say a city like Echo, if they wanted to allocate their funding to the county or to the PATH project or to CAPCO, or working with another partner, that community partner that they could work with, they want the flexibility to work with other municipalities as well as community partners that may be already addressing it within the community. What I asked for Mr. Smith is maybe we can bring that back to the presentation and get some council support behind it as well, so we can send a message. Not only was this the mayors of these cities, but also the councilors of these cities. And so I'd like to have you take a look at it and try and get your support in allocating or making a more public statement that this is important, and we feel like this is important to help us move forward with the challenges that we're faced with. You know, it's eating a larger and larger proportion of our budget every year, and currently it's coming out of general fund, and those resources are coming from other opportunities we spend within our community. So trying to get the state to partner with us as cities and counties. I know the county is also making a recommendation too, to try and get the state to work with us as we move forward with trying to address the homelessness in our community. Questions about that?
You were appointed as
I was one of the task force members, correct? How about other council reports? Yes, Councilor Spencer.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I got a couple of things. First,
Can you hear him on the mic?
can you hear me?
No.
Okay, I'll move it over. This Saturday, I was at Butte Park for the AYSO meets. They have them there pretty much every weekend through the fall. And I noticed that we have most of the bathrooms there locked up, and there was just a really disgusting porta potty. So for all the people that come in, I've got people coming in from out of town, from Umatilla, from Heppner. There were the two bathrooms over at Funland Park, and then one really, really disgusting porta potty for, I don't know, for probably 1,000, maybe 2,000 people that come to those on the weekend to use. I don't know what the reason for that was, but probably something that should be looked at. We should have adequate facilities there for all the kids and all the parents who are showing up at those. Next thing I want to mention is that the Chamber does have its Veterans Breakfast scheduled this year, so they have that scheduled for November 11th at 8 o'clock in the morning. So if everybody wants to, can attend. It's a great event, and they've been doing it for a lot of years, and I usually get good turnout for it.
And we're asking for volunteers to be getting up.
I don't know.
Veterans Banquet, is that at the Hermiston Community Center?
Yes.
8 a.m. on the 11th. Okay.
And it's
That's the Veterans Breakfast.
Yeah, Veterans Breakfast.
Anything else? Council? Mr. Smith, we don't have any youth advisors here this evening. I know a lot of them are.
Yeah, they're all participating in conferences. Some of the bands and choirs are all performing for conferences in high school, so they've all asked to be excused. Just wanted to follow up on one item. We've sent you some materials in writing on a couple of the items that came up in the council meeting 2 weeks ago, but just wanted to reiterate on the skating rink that we have met with Mr. Owens, and staff has had good conversations with him about addressing both of his concerns, which were, one, the drainage ditch that goes there and potential for easements, and then also the accessibility of the back portion of his property, which we've tried to provide him with adequate documentation that still exists and that isn't a concern. So just wanted to give you that update. I know it's kind of gotten a little bit of traction online, and just want to make sure that we'll clarify that we are working with him and doing all that we can to support his efforts to keep his business open. And that's all that I have.
That's it?
Yes.
All right. Then we are adjourned.